Welcome to the Billboard Mastery Podcast, where you will learn the correct way to identify, evaluate, negotiate, perform due diligence on, select the construction type, build, rent the ad space, and operate billboard signs. And now, here is your host, the guy that built from scratch the largest privately owned billboard company in Dallas-Fort Worth, Frank Rolfe.
We all think about approaching things from the inside and then move to the outside, going from the inside out. But sometimes you're better off going from the outside in. This is Frank Rolfe, the Billboard Mastery Podcast. We're going to talk about the concept of not starting in the center and working outward, but starting at the farthest edges of the circle and working back in. So what am I even talking about? Well, let's say you live in any city in America and you want to get in the billboard business. Right in the heart of the city will be the most competitive of anywhere you can possibly go. Why? It's got the biggest rents. Why else? Well, that's where most of the big companies have been historically for many, many years looking for locations. So where's the competition a little lower? When you go as far away as you can. Let me give you a story. Back when I got in the billboard business, Dallas-Fort Worth was really, really maxed out. It was beat up. People had hit most of those locations. So what I did was I just said, you know what? If I want to succeed, I'm just going to go get in my car and I'm going to drive about 45 minutes out of downtown Dallas. And where did it take me? It took me to Denton, Texas. And there were almost no billboards in Denton, Texas. So I just started putting them up everywhere. And people thought I was nuts. They were like, why are you building out in Denton, Texas? You should be trying to build them in Dallas. You might be able to get, one or two in Dallas. I was like, no, I'm going to go ahead and get 10, 20, 30 in Denton, Texas. Then I turned my car to the east. I went out east. Went out to Terrell, Texas, Forney, Texas, same story. There were no signs there. I started building signs out there. Over time, the cash flow and the banking that I had established from those signs in the periphery gave me the ability to go in and build and buy signs in the center, which were far more expensive and far more competitive. Because now I had a much greater mastery of what I was doing, and I had the ability to borrow money easier because the banks knew I also knew what I was doing. Now, there's another reason, however, beyond competition of why you'd want to go on the outside and work in. Because the signs on the outside and the outer periphery, they are cheaper. The average billboard you will find if you go outside of a city by an hour or so is going to be wooden construction, the original classic. Wooden telephone poles, 2x4 wooden stringers, wooden faces. The sign that you can build strictly out of a Home Depot. The sign where traditionally they don't even have any engineering for it. The type of signs that you build out of spare parts, because those telephone poles used to serve the power company well as telephones prior to being decommissioned. And those are the cheapest kind of signs you can humanly build. If you want to build a sign in the heart of the city, you're looking at building traditionally a steel monopole, the most expensive sign ever built by man. But if you go an hour out, well, you're looking at building the least expensive sign ever built by man. So just from a capital and risk standpoint, starting on the outside makes a lot of sense. As you get better, as your cash flow gets better, then you can go more towards the inside where it's more expensive to build signs or to buy them. But starting outside from a cost of capital is also a good idea. Another benefit of starting from the outside is the advertisers themselves. When you get on the outside, you're going to find the advertisers are easy to spot. Most of those smaller markets, they have some very definitive advertisers. Who would they be? Well, car dealers, home builders, hospital, restaurants, motels, all the regular suspects, but they're a whole lot easier to spot. And you can rent the ads a whole lot cheaper because the sign was a whole lot cheaper for you to build. And the ground rent's a whole lot cheaper because you're not inside the big city. Those kinds of advertisers can stick year over year over year, moving on up into decades. I can name many of the ones that I used to have. Dairy Palace was one. I put Dairy Palace on a sign. Dairy Palace was a place like a Dairy Queen. And I still have the original artwork from that sign. That sign was Dairy Palace's from the very day I built it, forevermore. It probably still has Dairy Palace on it today. Because those are advertisers who can make sense of it. Costs are not super high. They reach a town that is very definitive to them. And as a result, they look at that sign as an extension of their own sign on their building. So the advertisers, it's a lot easier to find them. It's a lot easier to secure them when you get way out of town. Now, once you've established that foothold, it's a whole lot easier to then go in. Because once you're good at what you're doing, once you have a stable of signs there so you can go up to property owners and say, oh yeah, I've been in the business for X months or years, and here's how many signs I have. And it gives you a whole nother level of confidence. So it just makes sense you start off where the competition is lower and then work in where it's more competitive because you're better. You are more competitive. But if you started on the outside, should you even bother to move in? Yeah, why not? Once you've gone ahead and mastered the area on the outside of the city, there may still be opportunities on the inside of the city. So the ones I normally spot always, number 1 are 8 sheet, those old metal monopole, typically 5 by 12 foot in size advertising faces, signs, most of which have been abandoned. Those were leftovers from the 1970s of tobacco and liquor advertisement, put up by big companies by the thousands, and later abandoned when they no longer could put tobacco on signs anymore. Many of those you can pick up for nearly nothing, $1,000. Tons and tons of them abandoned. You don't want any in every location, but some of those locations are not bad. You can wrap a vinyl on them. They're a monopole, or maybe they're a wall mount, and you can make good money with them. Low ground rent, and get a decent amount per month per face on them. So 8 sheets are always a good idea. Another one are those abandoned signs. Signs that were there that people built, and then for one reason or another, they just gave up on it. They had a dispute with the property owner. They couldn't reach an agreement on paying the lot rent. Whatever the case may be. There's always opportunity of those in cities because there's just so many signs. Things are so dense in the city. And then also don't forget that a lot of cities today, the billboard companies are very laissez-faire. They don't really have much firepower going on. And there may be parts of the city that have been newly rezoned into commercial use, and no one has even bothered to even look at that. So you may be able to find entire corridors, entire sections of cities right in the heart of the city that is now an opportunity because zoning has changed, and yet the big companies don't even know that because they haven't been watching for it. Why? Because they got bigger and they got complacent, and as a result, they just don't care anymore. Remember that Warren Buffett writes many articles about the ABCs of a business going bad, and the C is for complacency, the B is for bureaucracy. I can't remember what the A is. The A stands for something like they have no sense of urgency anymore. So you can still find deals in the heart of the city as you work back in. It's always worth your while to do that, but it's typically for most people the easiest and best course to start, rather than from right in the center where things are the most competitive and work out, to instead start on the outside where you have so much greater odds of success, where the sign structures are lower, where the advertisers are easier to accomplish, where the competition is much lower. That's typically your best starting spot. Once you've mastered that on the outside, you can then move in, but it's very hard to start in the center and move out. This is Frank Croft, the Billboard Mastery Podcast. Hope you enjoyed this. Talk to you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Billboard Mastery Podcast. Be sure to visit us at www.billboardmastery.com, where you can find past episodes of this show, plus an array of information to help you successfully build, buy, and operate billboard signs.